Hi, I'm Sandy McDaniel. I'm so glad you chose to join me today. Now, in the last session, we talked about two of the reasons that it's the most difficult time to be a parent now than it's ever been. One of the reasons was that children don't go out and play anymore. And so you have become a herder, and you're herding children here, and you're herding all your children here, all your children there, all your children here. So your verbiage, your attitude, your anger level all heightens. And I ask you to notice how much stress there is in your life because you're constantly trying to get all your children to one place at the same time, never mind dinner, homework, and all that stuff. The second reason is a generational breakdown. My mother's generation were the take no prisoners type. And then my generation said, hey, we're not doing it that way. But here's the problem. When you leave what was modeled for you, then you don't have any roadmaps. So some of us were too strict, some of us were too lenient, and then our children and their children, it's the pendulum swinging. And somewhere in that pendulum is where you're sitting. So if you didn't have parenting that was modeled for you, that was positive, then you're going to need to really work at breaking some of the cycles. And not in a negative way, not in a judgmental way. They didn't teach me. They didn't teach you because they didn't know how. And now it's time for you to learn how to work more constructively with your children and then to parent a group of children who are functional. So today we're going to talk about the effects of the media on children. I'm not sure that we're ever going to recover from the effects of the media. I don't know how we would because it's so enormous and it's not that positive. When I say media, I'm talking about television, computers, and video games in this session, all right? Now, when I babysit, when I take care of my mother who has Alzheimer's disease, we watch old movies like Old Yeller. And when I talk to parents about this and I say, you know, there are some movies out there that have these old, simple, with no violence, no sex violence type themes. And the parents will say, well, the kids get bored with them. And I found the opposite to be true because there's so much heart in them. What you have to do is expose your children to this kind of pace, and then the children will catch on to it. The amount of television watched by children increases every year. A kindergartner has watched as much as 6,000 hours of television. The average child watches 4 hours of television a day. Prior to age 12, 8,000 murders have been witnessed. And most of those violators got away, or many of them did, and there's no remorse or accountability in so many of the movies for a bad choice or for doing something that's illegal or for harming person or property. Many children today live in increasing fear about living in a world that is so dangerous. Where did they get that idea? From the media. The TV has become the babysitter. It's teaching their children the morals and values, and it is the inhibitor of brain development. You probably don't have any idea what that means. I'm going to teach you. First of all, the frame changes on the television every 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, new picture. 4, 3, 2, 1, new picture. 4, 3, 2, 1, new picture. The picture, the frame, what the child is watching changes every 4 seconds. For small children, that's too fast. Their brain can't take in that much information and process it that fast. So what happens is they become hyper. They become non-focused. They become more aggressive. Do you have a hyper, non-focused, more aggressive child? And the child is under the age of 2? Stop watching television. Here's the thing. The American Pediatric Society said that any child under the age of 2 should watch no television at all. None. Because of this. It's moving too fast for them. Now, there's another reason. The brain is the only organ that is not fully developed when a child is born. From birth until age 22, the brain is trying to fully develop. What it requires in order to do that is three-dimensional learning. Okay? Now, if a child is watching television, if a child is playing on the computer, if a child is playing video games, that's two-dimensional learning. It affects the development of your child's brain. Let me show you what happens. The reptilian part of the brain, this is very basic. I'm going to stay very basic here. The reptilian part of the brain is in the back part of the brain. That's where development begins. If a child is living in the reptilian part of their brain, they are not focused, hyperactive, and they tend to be more aggressive. But the brain's trying to move to the frontal lobe. And in the frontal lobe, the child would be more creative, would be more intuitive, and more feelings oriented. What the brain needs in order to make this shift from the reptilian part of the brain to the frontal part of the brain is three-dimensional learning. You're watching me in two-dimensional learning because I'm on a screen. If I were standing in the room giving a lecture in a hall, like I often do, then I would be three-dimensional learning. Children need to play. They need to interact. They need to participate in their lives in a tangible way for it to be three-dimensional learning. Otherwise, the brain slips back into the non-focused, hyperactive, aggressive part of the brain. It's really important when your children do watch television that you interact with them. What did you see? What happened? What did you learn? What's going on? It develops thinking and reasoning skills, memory skills, interactive skills, and it allows you to participate on an interactive basis with your child. You don't just stick your child in front of a television, they watch television, and then you grab them and go running off to do some errand. You talk about it. You make it a part of a learning experience for the child, which helps with their brain to develop. You need to pay attention to how much video time your children are spending. How often are they watching the videos? In your home? In your car? Did you notice that they have videos in the market now? And do you know that they're experimenting now with putting videos in shopping carts so that children will be entertained while the parents are shopping? Sounds great, because you won't have little monsters running around in the market. The more you put that child in front of two-dimensional learning, the more you are inhibiting your child's brain. And that has a big tariff down the line. One more thought on this media influence today. Too much violence numbs the child's ability to understand that harming people or property is not acceptable. Our children are ingesting too much violence. The American Academy of Child Adolescent Psychiatry says there are 4 ways that violence affects children. Number 1, they become numb to violence. Number 2, they accept violence as a way to solve problems. This is very dangerous for our society. Number 3, they imitate the violence on the television, in the video games, on the computers. Number 4, they identify with certain characters, both positive and negative. Some children identify with the victims. I did not know this last part when I read this study. Some children will identify with the victims. The main thing is that the influence is negative, and we've got to pay attention to this. We've got to look at the effect that it has on our children. My son and his wife very, very astutely did so. Nicholas was almost 3 and somebody gave him a bunch of Star Wars stuff. I think it was for Christmas. And a little clip. There was a clip out of one of the Star Wars movies where Darth Maul has a battle with the lightsabers with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay? It's very violent. I saw the clip. Well, I was called into the thing because all of a sudden Nicholas changed from a sweet little loving boy to this aggressive kid who, basically met you in the hall with a imaginary lightsaber. But the other thing was he started telling people like his grandmothers, his other one and me, that it was time to go home. Home would be back to a different state, all right? Or that he didn't like them, or one of us, or something, because he was taking on this aggression. When they asked me what I thought was going on and what was happening to sweet little Nicholas, I said, I think it's too much violence for him. He's too young. So they said they'd made a huge mistake. And they took all the Star Wars stuff and they put it in a bag and they said he could have it back in a few years. Within 2 or 3 days, sweet Nicholas came back. These children do not have the heart. They do not have the ability to take all of this combustible energy and this violence and integrate it into their lives and not have it be on a detrimental level. We've got to stop letting our children watch so much violence, or we're going to have a society that none of us can live in. Bottom line, excessive viewing of violence leads a child to be more aggressive, numb to the fact that hurting people or property is not okay, and it's training our children to be combative rather than communicative in order to solve problems. And it's teaching our children to be violent. It needs to stop. And the only person who can stop it is you. So here are my rules for computer and media time. Take a breath, because this is going to be hard. 1 hour of media time a day. 1 hour only. If the kids are out of school in summer, then I'm okay with 2 hours, but don't put them back to back. 1 hour a day. No TV, no computers in their bedroom. You need to know what your child is doing on a computer. You need to know what they're watching. You need to have it where somebody's walking around monitoring what's going on. If you're in the room and you walk into an area where a child's on a computer and they jump and try to cover something, then you take that keyboard and it's yours for a day. You've got homework to do. You can't do your homework because I had the keyboard. Too bad. Because whatever you were doing, you were trying to cover up, and that's not okay. 1 out of 5 people who are approaching a child on Facebook or any one of the things that is those places that kids go, 1 out of 5 people who connect with your child could be a predator. Those odds aren't good enough for me. You've got to protect what your children are watching, what they're viewing, and what they're doing with all of this media. You've got to look at what video games they're watching, what videos they're watching, and what video games they're playing. The violence in these video games is over the top. Watch the game. Is that who you want your child to become? If the answer is no, then I'm sorry. You're not watching or you're not playing that video game. Well, my friends all have it. Too bad. Because you've got to protect your children from this. No TV, no computers in the bedroom. Because you've got to watch what's going on. Even your children will say, you don't trust me. Look at them and say, it's the other people I don't trust. My job is to keep you safe. And if that means I need to do things that make me retarded in your brain, I'm sorry. But I've got to live with myself. I've got to go to bed at night and know I did everything I could do to keep you safe today. And watching all that stuff isn't going to do it. All cell phones, all gadgets go in a basket when the child comes home from school. They can pick up the gadgets after they've done their homeworks after they've done their homework and after they've done their chores. That was the one I couldn't think of. Their chores and their homework, okay? But then they go back in the basket before they go to sleep. Children are text messaging each other at night and not sleeping. Children need to get lots of sleep. If you have the gadgets, the cell phones, the things that they can talk to each other on, then they can't do it after bedtime. They go back in the basket. If they're not in the basket, you go and retrieve them. They're yours for 2 days. You've got to monitor all of these things. And if you do this, you're not going to be popular with your children's friends. They're going to go, well, she's a retard or he's a retard. Yeah, because you're not letting your child do the things that they get to do. But even harder, you're going to have to fight the peer pressure of your friends' parents, your peers. Because see, if you protect your children, if you say these are the boundaries, this isn't okay, my children aren't going to watch these kinds of things, then you make them look bad. You know the old story about the kid who's watching the parade, and the king is marching down with his new costume on, his new outfit on, and he's naked. And everybody's going, wow, what a cool costume. And one little kid says, excuse me, he's naked. Now, at this point, the crowd has two choices. To either go, what the heck am I doing? Or to get rid of the kid. They always get rid of the kid. Because they don't want to look at what they're doing. Because it's too much work. So if you take on these things, you're going to deal with a loss of some people in your life. It's not about making friends and keeping friends for you. It's about sculpturing a human being. And that's more important. That's more vital. That's more essential than whether somebody likes you or not. What other people think of you is none of your business. You're raising a human being. There are no reruns in this game. You have the opportunity to enhance, to create, to help sculpture an incredible human being, or to totally mess up a child's life. You need to do your best every day. That's good enough. Who can ask you to do more? Your homework is obvious. 1 hour of media time a day. If this is hard for you and can get away from you, it's kind of easy. Take a colored square of paper, piece of paper, let's say. Take a colored square of paper and cut it into 4s. Each square is 15 minutes. When a child spends their squares, they're done. Well, I forgot. Well, I forgot that tomorrow, spend your squares more wisely. 4 squares, 8 squares, but no more squares. And then you can control what's going on. Parenting isn't an easy job. There's nothing easy about it. And today it's much, much harder than it's ever been. Do the best you can. Make each day a new attempt to be a really great parent. And thanks for watching, because it's really important to me to help you be that better parent. This is Sandy McDaniel. Have a beautiful day.